So I don't want to give the impression that I'm like super discouraged or confused because of that last video. It what it is I try to sort out my sense. Um and the thing I've discovered is that many times I'll share my feelings and it'll turn out that I'm given those feelings in an intense measure so that I can articulate them for others. So many times when I do a video like that, I'll get feedback saying that's exactly what I feel, but I can't put it in words. And so God will let me sit and think about a set of feelings or parse through some things and give utterance to it. Now, we are supposed to watch. I'm not advocating against watching, but like I've said, watchfulness is guarding your crown. And, you know, I think we're going to come into understanding the letter to the church of Philadelphia says, because you've kept the word of my patience. And, I was thinking about how John said he was on the Isle of Patmos, and he called himself your brother, our brother, and companion in the patience. I think this impatience or endurance, waiting for the kingdom. He was talking about waiting. And there is a patience that comes into play because as you see the signs approach, you have a warfare. You have the flesh and the spirit, and your spirit is being renewed, or the way it's supposed to work is your spirit is supposed to be being renewed, and your outer man is being worn down. Okay. And you have a groaning that is, on the one hand, your first fruits of the spirit desire to be clothed and liberated, clothed with life and liberated as a manifested sons of God, and see the eternal purpose of the Father fulfilled. On the other hand, this groaning is a kind of affliction because God has subjected everything to futility for that purpose. So it becomes a quandary of how do we live? And that tension doesn't get resolved until we get out of here. Okay, and I believe that as he approaches, the tension gets greater between the flesh and the spirit. Our spirit's longing to go home is greater and greater, and our flesh almost can't take it. And I think about the you look at the contrast between the 3 years of ministry of Christ and the early outpouring of the Spirit that happened in Acts, where everybody had all things in common and they were daily meeting in the temple and breaking bread from house to house. How long did that last? Eventually, a persecution rose up and scattered them. But then we see, once we get to the epistles, we see churches established that are different in nature. It seems like people are living in their own households and they're being instructed on how to live this life while they're waiting. And the idea is that you're going to be here for a little bit. Uh, there's less chaos and more stability if you look at the epistles. And we're supposed to have a life that, unless there's outward circumstances that are demolishing our life because of persecution or war or whatever, our life is blessed here. And we are a stability. We are lampstands. We are salt and light. We are preservation in the midst of chaos because of Christ. We don't bring chaos on ourselves in foolishness, thinking we're serving the Lord by doing so. We take care of our household and our responsibilities and live as good examples of the gospel here in this world while we wait for the Lord to come. And we keep a loose grip on the things of this world. We don't get ourselves overly involved in this world. And yet we have the strength by the Spirit to endure. And what I was thinking was that, like I said, you couldn't survive the 3 years of ministry of Christ for 90 years. You couldn't survive the first 5 chapters of Acts for 80 years. That is a special season that God knows our flesh. He knows we're just weak. And He lets these feelings of watchfulness come. These periods, these contractions bring clarity to us, especially regarding the gospel. Grace is brought to light. The truth of the gospel shines because when you realize the Lord is coming, then you go, well, am I ready? And then you go, well, what is the qualification of being ready? And then the wolves come and the tares are manifested and all that stuff. And that process refines the wheat and their understanding so that they are more and more ready. We are ready and we are in the season. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we're going to be here for years or anything like that. All I was doing in that video was describing the feeling, how I had this imminence for 4 months, uh, pressing desperation. It was like one huge contraction. And then there's like a release where it's like yesterday and today, I just don't feel that way. And I see people trying to attach what's going on right now in every sphere of the news and the geopolitical this and that to that sense that is dissipated. And I wasn't even going to post that video until I saw Barry Scarborough's video and Amanda Christian. I saw Amanda Christian's video, and then this morning I held off. And then this morning I posted Barry Scarborough's, or I'm sorry, I saw Barry Scarborough's video where I felt like he was kind of saying something a little similar, that we need to have our anchor in Christ, not in an event. Yes, we want the rapture. Yes, we want the Lord to come. But we still have to live here. And what we need to be praying for is strength to endure. We should have joy and peace. And the Lord wants to supply that to us. That's part of our salvation, is for Christ to be our enjoyment right now, even though our flesh is in feeling the futility and our first fruit spirit is groaning. We want to be out of here. Yet we can be strengthened with might into our inner man to endure and have patience. Hope that makes sense. Um, so that's all I was saying. I'm not trying to discount the watch seasons or the watchmen, but I am saying you need to nourish your spirit. That watching in that way, in terms of like looking at the news constantly to see if the rapture's today and being disillusioned if it's not, that's not watching. Watching has to do with the state of your heart, the condition of your heart before the Lord, and nourishing your inner man and being engaged in the Lord strong enough that you can express him in this life. All right, thanks.